This has to do with folk practices, sometimes I think better called popular Islam, because folk is not exactly easily defined, and also could be a bit of a pejorative term in the sense that you're calling some orthodox and some unorthodox, but we're really struggling for the right term. But let's begin again with a little bit of Sufi stuff. We've talked about Sufis before. I want to emphasize here that Sufism and popular Islam is not one and the same, though there is some overlap, and we'll show that overlap, show the relationship between popular Islam and Sufism as we go along. But let's look at some of this Sufi poetry. It's quite amazing. O my Lord, if I worship thee, from fear of hell, burn me in hell. If I worship in hope of paradise, exclude me for thine own name's sake. But if I worship thee for thine own name's sake, withhold not me from thine own eternal beauty. That was Rabia al-Adawiyah, who died in 801. Obviously, she is sincere, and she willing to prove the sincerity of her love for God. She is focusing on her motives. In other words, if she has any selfish motives for worshiping God, for loving God, then invites God to damn her. In other words, not allow her into paradise. And I think that there is no sense here of selfishness or of self-interest. That's true. But the focus, I think, is on herself, on her own love for God, and that is Sufism perhaps at its best. There is some contrast between that and our own relationship with God, as we'll see in a moment. This is what a Turkish woman said, which is the same idea. Consume me with terror, thou judge of the dead. If only, O God, I thus thee may know, and thee once behold while I tarry below. Throw me like Abram into the fire. You know that there is a hadith where Abraham, because of his stand for monotheism, is thrown into the fire. Throw me like Abram into the fire, like Moses withhold me from the land I desire. If only, O God, I thus thee may know, and thee once behold while I tarry below. Hang me like Jesus upon the rood tree, or poor, like Manzur through this life I may be. If only, O God, I thus thee may know, and thee once behold while I tarry below. Look at the passion. Look at the sincerity. Look at the thirst for God. It's quite amazing. And in some ways it puts us to shame, because it's evident. And we also need to thirst and hunger after God, as some of the mystics have in the past. One of my students in the past here at the school compared Augustine and his love for God with the Sufis. And this is what Augustine said in the Confessions. Late I came to know you. Late I loved you. You were with me, but I was not with you. You cried and called aloud and broke my deafness. You flashed, shone, shattered my blindness. You breathed fragrance. I drew my breath, and I pant for you. I tasted, I hunger and thirst. You touched me, and I burn for your presence. I think there is a difference here, because as far as Augustine is saying, that yes, he did search for God, he did hunger for God, but it was God who touched him first. We love him because he first loved us. God sought us out, and that's why we can respond to him. In the garden, he was the one who said, Adam, where are you? Aggressively looking for him, calling for him. And I think this is true of Christianity. If Christianity is anything, it's God looking for us. After all, the incarnation, look at the extent to which God has gone to show us his love, to demonstrate his grace. And I'm not saying that Muslims don't understand the love of God, the mercy of God, but there seems to be a different emphasis as far as I can see. More on the Sufis. The Sufis have orders all over the world. They call them tariqas. You can go to Turkey, you can go to North Africa, you can go to South Asia, in other words, India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. You can find the orders there. I'll speak briefly about the orders in the South Asian picture or context of Islam. This is first of all, the Chishti order. It's India, Pakistan, and there is the first one, the Chishti, coming out of a shrine just outside of Delhi. I forget the exact name of it, but it's huge. The descendant of that is Babu Farid, and it's in the Punjab in Pakistan. And he has there what they call the door of paradise. If you go through there, presumably you can, that's the door of paradise, and you will get to heaven. We were interested in places like that because of the opportunity to distribute literature. Thousands and tens of thousands of people would come, not all literate, of course, but some would, to the shrine during the Urs, which is the celebration of the births, the saint's birthday and death day. And so you see that it's quite the business. These shrines, these piers, and Chishti is a big one. I'm telling you, it's huge. One of my friends presently in India, northern India, was saying just a short time ago, I was doing a little dialogue with him, and he was saying that that they're on their way soon to this shrine in India. The foreigners would lay low, have a low profile, but the Pakistanis, not Pakistanis, but the Indian Christians would be out there giving out literature. Another order is the Suhawardi, the order in Pakistan. It's another big one. Another is the Qadiri, Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani. That's a very famous name. I think it's the Interior Ministry now in Pakistan, is a guy by the name of Jilani. And the Naqshbandi. This is also one that's very common, very famous. Naqshbandi apparently did 700 miracles, and the Indian subcontinent is pretty well known. I mean, I lived next to a city in Pakistan where the city, they said, was basically known for three things: for saints, for heat, and let's see, I forget what the third one was, but anyway, lots of shrines were there, and a pretty hot place. Oh yes, the third one was dirt, which was quite the place. This place dates back to, there's a tradition there that Alexander the Great died there in the 3rd century BC. Anyway, look at the map here, the distribution of Sufi tariqas. You can see them all over the place. I mentioned some of them, the Naqshbandiya, okay, all over the place, the Chishti and Suhawardi, and then you get down into Saudi Arabia, even the Qadiri. You see, even in Saudi they have these Sufi orders. The Baktashi up here in Central Asia, in North Africa, the Tijani, the Qadiri. So you see, you have different orders. They're different names, but often, you know, there's not much difference between them. Also down here in West Africa as well, and you can go over to Southeast Asia. Sufi orders wherever you go. The Mevlevi in Turkey. I have videos of the Sufi orders in Turkey and some of the extreme things what they do. Putting swords into their flesh, some of them putting swords right through their cheeks and all through their skin. It's quite amazing. They seem to get into some kind of a trance and they're hypnotized. You have the whirling dervishes, quite a thing. Turkey has stamped on them oftentimes in the past, and sometimes they've gone underground, but they've resurfaced again. A lot of Sufis, and They say in Pakistan, and I think it's true, that Islam really spread through Sufis because they were close to the people. They, into miracles and all this kind of stuff, and so that's to be noted. Now let's move on a little bit and compare high Islam and low Islam, if we can use those terms, or popular Islam it's really a bit of a struggle, because we don't want to put some Muslims down and tell those who are into popular Islam that they're not orthodox, because they wouldn't appreciate it. And when everybody's into it anyway, most of the Muslims in the world, how is it not orthodox? So it is a bit of a judgment call in any event. And then we're going to look, as I mentioned before, comparing Sufis with the whole works. There is a variation of terms, none of them complete. You can call it orthodox versus and orthoprax, which is the right practices. This is what Islam's seen face is. You see Muslims doing such and such, with their school in Cairo, Al-Azhar, and their intellectual places. You can see them with their beautiful mosques. You can see them on the pilgrimage, 2 million strong. That's the seen face. What is the unseen face? Well, that's the popular stuff. That's the stuff that you don't see. That's the stuff you don't see unless you're looking for it. And people like myself can work among Muslims for years and years and years and not see the unseen face. If you're not looking for something, you can be blind to it. But the best estimates are that 3/4 of the Muslims in the world, I haven't counted them, so this is anecdotal evidence, but I believe it because I've seen the prevalence and I've read a lot of stuff on it. And indeed, most of the Muslims in the world are into some kind of popular practices involving curses and blessings, the saints and spirits. Even remember when we were talking about the pilgrimage and the stuff that's done there with the holy water, the touching of the black stone and throwing stones at the devil. These, in my view, are popular practices. And they're the real thing, because I think that's where the heart is. The heart is there, not so much in the ritual, the duty, but the emotion is really there. Here is a diagram that I think is quite true. Orthodox Islam, if you can call it that, is what you see. What you don't see, but what is very much under the surface and is like an iceberg in the sense of its immensity, is folk practices, popular Islam. This is, I think, an image that you will not forget. You must remember. Here are some of the comparisons. Formal stuff deals with the cognitive. In other words, the truth. This is what Muslims are concerned about. The stuff that's really heady. But on the other hand, in folk Islam, it's the heartfelt stuff, the emotional. And that's really what seems to grab them and grip them. Here you have legalism. Here you have mysticism. Lots of stuff on the mystical stuff. Here the formal, the ultimate issues of life. Where did we come from? Heaven, hell, purpose of life, and death, and the judgment. These are the issues. These are some of the stuff that Muhammad preached on too, particularly in Mecca. But here, it's more practical. Worried about health, worried about guidance, worried about success, worried about prosperity, and the overriding element of fear. Fear from evil forces, fear of Satan, fear of people who have it in for you or could put a curse on you. Here, the sources of the Quran and sacred traditions, in other words, the Hadith. Here, it's the power is not in that way, though they use the Quran in a powerful way. but they use it as an amulet. They use it as in writing its verses and tying them up in little pouches and putting it on their wrists and on their body somewhere as a source of protection. And the revelation. This is institutional. This is more inspirational. This is supplicative, formal Islam. These terms are not completely true, but here it's manipulative in the sense that you are forcing, in other words, you're using the spirits or using the saints or somehow coercing God to do your bidding or to help you. I think that's true, certainly true to a great extent. Now, we close with this diagram showing the overlap. Of course, you have Orthodox Islam, or we could say the seen face, the face that they want you to see. I think it's true too. In their mosques, in their the image that they present in the going on the pilgrimage and one thing and another, that's there. Now there is Sufism, which we've looked at briefly. There is quite a bit there too. That is, I've already said that Islam spread through the Muslim world quite a bit through Sufism because they were close to the people. They were into miracles. They were dealing with the felt needs of Muslims. And you have, I think, fair enough to say that you have popular Islam, which is not the same as Sufism. There is some overlap, but overlap in the sense that low Sufism is part of popular Islam, but then you have high Sufism, which is also orthodox. And so perhaps this diagram helps you to understand the nobility that you heard of from the poem of Rabia al-Adawiyya is often not seen in popular Islam. In other words, instead there is a certain taking advantage by these peers, these saints, who are making money off of people and making money out of their ignorance. That's often what you see, rather than the sincerity of people like Rabia or the one who wrote that poem, that Turkish woman.